but not too bad. Yeah, you close them and fold them and it works out okay. So apologize, but it's a much better, bigger image than the screen here. So we elected to go with the large image on the blinds and a little bit of distortion, but I think we'll be okay. So we're going to start tonight, I guess. First thing, there was a sign-in sheet on this side, a sign-in sheet on that side, and just please sign and pass back. We'll get that at the end. So we want to first get some feedback. You all toured. Comments, things you saw, things you want to talk about, anything that comes to mind. We're going to show some pictures too, but anything that feel that we should talk about? Yeah.
I had some questions. Do we have staff people from this building? Principals here. We spend a lot of time on maintenance structural issues, but I'd like to talk about the educational needs for this particular building. I think the observation, the size of classrooms seems to be somewhat limiting. Has your staff done a list, like discussed and said, this is the criteria, this is what we need, this is what we would like, kind of?
As far as design, no, we have not.
Okay.
We have not.
But
We would love to.
Pardon?
We would love to, but we've not been asked to do that.
I think we should, from my,
The question was, has the staff, does they have any comments on how does the building work educationally? And do they have any comments on that, on classroom sizes and what might be lacking?
I mean, I know a couple things that we can tell you generally. One, we do work in a lot of small groups, so that's why we mentioned the tables in the hallways. The classrooms, the way they are now, they're not conducive to that. The second would be storage is always an issue. When you went, I don't know if some of you looked at the classrooms in the new wing, the 30-year-old wing. Those rooms have nice storerooms. The rooms up here have small closet, space, 2 closets, and that's, this size, that's all they have. Another thing I noticed Dr. McCarty has talked about to the big group was that the schools of the future expect more flexibility. That's the piece that we talk about. We have flexible furniture and movable furniture and flexible spaces. So that's a general.
Yes.
My curiosity, because I haven't been in this building in years, after reading in our local media the comment that our buildings are, I think the quote was, deteriorating in front of our very eyes and we had to do something. As I walked around, I mean, paint, carpet, room sizes are what they are. We need to change the furniture. Is there something that I missed as far as a structural deterioration? Because I didn't see anything ready to cave in, fall in, and so I'm just curious. We have a square room. Are all we looking at is changing internal furniture pieces? Because the rooms to me look structurally in good shape and actually rather large. I was surprised how big they were.
I invite you to come hang out and
I would say, please come to my classroom. When I have 24 kindergartners in my room, it is nowhere close to large. I've had to eliminate.
For about 900 square feet, isn't it? Or what is it now?
not for kindergarten.
Not for
Kindergarten
kindergarten.
is, their standard's bigger, but regular classrooms, 810 to 900 square feet, yeah.
Okay, so I didn't see, other than kindergarten, so I apologize, I didn't understand little ones took more space, but other than that, I didn't see any rooms that were any smaller than that, so I'm kind of confused, other than furnishings, what we're lacking. Just a comment.
There are smaller rooms. You must not have seen the smaller
I was
rooms.
talking as far as like room size, he said everything's too small and we can't do things in there. I was just seeing.
There was a question about what it would cost to fix the HVAC system.
Sure.
The study from the state in 2015 put it at $1.6 million. Okay?
You gotta qualify that based on how they come up with it. If the boiler's over 20 years old, it's a total replacement. So
Right.
it's a total replacement, it's not a, you know, we could maybe look at controls or registers or what the system actually needs.
Well, they're
Instead of calling
talking
for a complete replacement.
complete, they're talking complete replacement.
Correct.
All the piping,
Everything.
all the controls,
Right.
and the boilers.
Right.
And then you've got $744,000 on electrical. Because if you look at the electrical, there's a lot of power strips that are full and daisy chains, which all would be issues. So there's a lot of the issues is mechanical, and some of the pictures in this presentation, I think we're gonna see of the crawl space, it looks like some of the supports have rusted out and are hanging down that support the floors.
Could you repeat that? Supports on the floor?
Right. Well, it's in their presentation that they sent out to us earlier, and there's one picture that shows that the struts in the crawl space seem to have come off of the floor supports.
You also got very few of the pictures that they took underground. I have the pictures and could share them of all of the things that they took pictures of underground. If people want to see what that looks like, I can send them and share them.
Yeah.
But there are issues under there, obviously.
Yeah, I specifically had you ask Chuck what structural problem there are with the building. What was his answer?
No major
That's
structure,
none.
not
None.
structure.
That
No
was his
foundation cracks.
None.
But that was the issue.
Well, I think it means, but you gotta clarify that. What structural problem mean? I mean, if we had a structural problem that put the safety of the kids at risk, they wouldn't be in this building.
Exactly.
Okay? And what I see is a building that's been well maintained, but it's old. And I'll give you my example. I had a 20-year-old truck I tried to keep running. Now, by golly, you know what? The doors worked fine, the engine ran, but it started falling apart. The brakes failed. The gas tank went out. That's what's happening here. When they say it's crumbling from within.
That's right.
Yeah, so structural, that's a very good point, because most of these line items there, they're systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems that they've got rings as a full replacement, finishes, loose furnishings, things that, all that adds up to, according to the state back in 2015, almost 6.7 million.
And then you still have no building.
And you still have no building that's not been reprogrammed to the type of things that the principal just said that she'd like to have.
Finish what you were gonna say.
I'm sorry?
Finish what you were gonna say.
If you fix them, it's just like my truck. I could fix that truck. I could spend a lot of money. I probably would have spent less than the vehicle. But I'm not gonna get the same value. It's not gonna last as long. It's still gonna have those problems. And, you know, I think when you look at this here, they've done an excellent job maintaining what they have. I mean, look at, you got 70-year-old buildings here. And, but when you look at it, it's, okay, they're talking, well, last week we went down and we replaced the pipes for the heating. That isn't something you do in a building every day, but it sounds like that's what's happening because the mechanical system, they're just plain wore out. You know, they're just plain wore out. And when you look at how much money you're gonna have to spend to do that, well, now wait a minute, we got the water problem, the drainage doesn't work. So, all right, we've got moisture. Well, we've got to solve that. Does anybody think there's enough electrical supply here today compared to how does your own house 50 years ago, how many plugs did his have compared to what you got today? So now you've got to look at it isn't just the electrical systems work. He doesn't have the capability. Okay. I'm gonna just run through some of these slides. It's gonna be hard to read, but these are just some of the comments we got, and it's really just kind of showing some of the conditions. You know, looking at the space in classrooms for storage, or lack thereof, or sharing of storage. Spaces for small groups, or not having spaces for small groups. So again, finding space where you can. And again, this is not atypical of an older building.
Just make a comment on that. What happens when the fire marshal walks in? Or worse than that, guys, what happens if there is a fire? How do you get out?
Well, the fortunate thing is that's not officially a fire exit for the building. But yes, if the fire marshal were to walk in, he's not gonna like that.
Let's go talk about what the rules are.
Along those lines, why are you doing it?
Why are we doing it?
Well, I understand that.
Well, you
What I'm
gotta
saying
look-
is, if it's a safety hazard, why are you even doing it?
Because we're here to educate
No, it's not,
kids.
it's not, that classroom to the right there has its own exit out of the building.
Yeah.
They don't come out this way. Does that make sense? This is not fire, they go out the other way. These children will be the ones that have to exit.
I think the issue.
Does that make
guys,
sense?
Yeah, it would be great if there was a better space, right?
Well, yeah.
That's
But
I
we
think
don't have to have big down
the lesson of this is the space doesn't exist right now to do that.
Can we just say, one great point you just made, why are we doing that? Can we just say, education is not what it used to be? And what we,
So it's okay to have an unsafe place.
no, this is what we need to do, this is what we need.
I understand that.
Okay.
But the alternative is, what you said was unsafe.
What we
So you
also-
chose to do unsafe.
No, this is what we need to do to meet civic needs, and we don't have a choice.
I'm gonna remind you something, I was gonna say this for a while. But I think it's fine. The voters have said no twice. It's gonna have to be affordable. And if you forget that, when you're having these conversations about what we need, you're in for a long fight.
Wait a minute.
When we started this. Just wait a second. As a school person, as a superintendent, okay, I understand what staff do. And staff do what they need to do to educate the kids. The fire marshals, the police, all those people are in these buildings in conjunction with those principals and the staff. That particular site, I'm sure gets talked about, and they have to prove that the movement has to be capable of going through. So,
It's not,
it's not,
it's just not like you.
the fire marshal's looking at that going, I don't like that, I'm sure. But after explanation, and they've got their fire traffic, they've got their emergency dismissals, they've got all these things that the state requires. Trust me, every school district has got to walk that fine line. So we all need to understand that and remember that we've got to stay focused on that. You can take parts and pieces wherever you stand with this issue and you can sell it. And I love the fact that you guys are staying with us to sell your parts. Just like I hear certain folks talking about you don't have to replace, just because OFCC is coming in and saying it's $2 million or whatever to do this. Once you get to that point of passing and designing a building, you may decide that you're going to do parts and pieces and change this and that to get that whole product that you're looking for. So we can't get hung up yet at this point in the plan to start balancing off all of these different things. You all want the same thing. You want what's good for kids. You're just struggling with, do we need new, or do we need renovated, and where are we going to put it, and all these other issues that we've been talking about.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
With that being said, it's really important to remember too that their report and their numbers are to fix the structural, the systems, and those kinds of things. Their report did not talk about the education educational needs. And all we're trying to get across is that there are educational needs in these buildings in addition to the systems and the structural. And we just feel like that maybe that the community and even some members of this committee aren't aware of what the educational needs of our students are in this situation. We're not telling you what to do, we're just saying here's what you need to know as you're deciding.
And when you work on any space, you need to understand that the curriculum pendulum will swing. It goes, because I'm old enough that I've seen it. And so whatever you decide to do has got to be able to start having the needs met for whatever system that you decide to finish with as a master plan. So again, I just want to jump in here and say, don't get too hung up on OFCC dollar figures. I know that you want to talk finances because the bottom line is whatever you decide, what's it going to cost us. But we're trying to still figure out what are the best options that you might have some interest in passing on to the finance committee so you can figure out what that balance looks like. Okay? Sorry that I jumped in, but I can see the pieces apart.
I just want to ask, we, Max and I, went out and started telling people, teachers, and put down their needs and wants. So we can get voiced in through the community. Because I think it's very important to get the community involved with us so we can present the problem. And because if we don't, we're going to spin our wheels.
Well, and the biggest part of that is you need to continue to heighten the awareness.
Right.
Whatever it is, you've got to heighten your awareness of there is a challenge in front of you. You've got to figure out what you want that solution to look like. But you've got to have people talking about it. Yeah.
And I think we don't need to have a preconceived notion that yes, the levy cap didn't pass before. The whole point of this task force is to examine the needs and come up with a conclusion. And then it's our job to go out and sell it to the public. I mean, if we've done a study and have some reasonable reasons for making the suggestions, then I think we need to promote that and not be negative. You know,
I don't disagree.
this disagreeability is ridiculous, and we're here for the
I'm struggling with
kids.
what I have to say. See, whatever is presented, or whatever we decide in this room, this committee is tasked with selling that to the voters that are in this room. And if some hard decisions aren't made about some of these type things, that sell can't be made.
And that's a very fair statement, because your group of friends or your acquaintances in your neighborhood and his and hers and his and theirs, they're all different. And the idea of a school district the size of yours, you've got to, the groundswell has to start down here, and teachers can't do it by themselves.
That's right.
And the community can't do it by themselves unless you have this basic network started. So let's go ahead and get through these,
Right.
and then we'll continue with the conversation.
So just, these pictures are really just identifying challenges. And that's what we're talking about is these are challenges. And whether you're building new or renovating or whatever you decide to do, these are issues that need to be dealt with because they're certainly not ideal. If they're not ideal for education or whatever, these are just what's been presented as challenges about limited storage, accessibility of storage, how to use whatever space you can. We know that in older buildings, as time goes by, you make do with what you have in the best way you can. And so that's what I took from these pictures is here's how this building is being utilized as best you can with what you have. Again, this is a design. This is a room designed for kindergarten, showing some of the space and storage here. This was not designed for kindergarten, and again, lack of space for what you need in a kindergarten room. Lack of cubbies. again, these are just some photographs of conditions you saw, things that are old, things that need to be replaced, things that need to be fixed. We know they're all there. Again, that's part of what's in the assessment, things that need to be taken care of. Temperature, water, plumbing, all the issues that we know are things that are challenges. Yes?
What?
Grade classroom.
Fourth grade classroom, that's when our building was shut down, was last 2 years
2
ago?
years ago.
Because of the water. And as
We still have brown
long
water.
as they don't turn the pipes off for any long period of time.
Right.
It doesn't come out of the tap.
You have a water problem?
Not
you don't.
now. There's,
Yeah, it's
when the water has not run for several days and you turn the faucets on, yes, you will have brown water. That particular situation where the water had not been run through an entire spring break.
And we were shut down for 2 days because of it. And some of it, I will tell you from experience too, some of it is because the pipes are actually housed in the walls. And I had a building that you always had to run the water for a while. And we could test it and there was nothing,
Nothing wrong.
wrong with it, other than the kids would look at it if it came out brown and say, I'm not drinking that. But after you ran it for a while, it was fine.
Can I ask you, Ben,
Yes, it was tested, it was a part of all of
what did
it.
it come up with? Do you know what came up with it?
Nothing that was,
Not a health hazard,
Yeah.
particular matter in there, so it's plenty and it's got.
We all came back on Monday.
basically they said it was from the water sitting in the pipes and the residue and whatever is in the pipe moving through is what they said it was.
And we know there are a number of pictures underneath the building. The building has a lot of crawl space, and there are a lot of things in that crawl space, and the pipe conditions of the pipes are old. And yes, that's all captured in the assessment as well. That assessment does recognize that needs to be replaced. Yeah, and the crawl spaces are just naturally moist. They're not renovated they're not ventilated very well, yes. Is
I
what?
actually took that picture myself.
Did
Under
you?
the building.
Oh, you went down.
And the white drips there are all drips that go down the whole length of the gym, the whole floor. I got these pictures.
So that's
I took them.
condensate
Yeah.
dripping down in there.
So that's-
I know these are hard to see, but yeah, they're old pipes underneath the building. Throughout. Not around. So we just wanted to quickly go through that, but again, this is really just identifying that there are existing conditions. We know they're not perfect. They need to be taken care of one way or the other. Yep.
Build a new building on a crawl?
Typically, new buildings are not built on crawls.
Did everyone hear that question?
The question was, would you build a new building on a crawl space? And my answer was, typically new buildings are not built on crawl spaces. So, I mean, the problem with the crawl space, it was thought that it's a good way to access the pipes, but it's also a good way to generate a very moist, high humidity environment and they're usually not big enough to really work in unless you build a crawl space you could walk through. So normally schools don't get built crawl spaces.
Where do they run the utilities? Underground.
That's what I was just
Underground or overhead. You have your drain pipes underground and all your supply pipes would be overhead.
So if you change things out, you can do it up above.
Above, yeah.
So everything
Yeah.
down below can go away. And you
Right.
just do it up above.
Yeah, the only thing underground is typically going to be your sewer. And so all of your water supply, your chilled water, hot water supply, everything else is usually up above so you can access it.
Well, Chuck mentioned the flat roof problem, so couldn't you truss the roof on the flat building and put all your utilities up there? Is that what you would do with a new building? So run overhead?
Yeah, usually above the ceiling, between the ceiling and the roof. Yeah. Okay.
All right, gang, couple of things before we get into this. We're going to recap a couple of things and ask for a large group conversation. And the only part that I would tell you, if you remember my conversation from the first couple of nights that we met, remember that you all are here because you represent part of your community. And what you think is what I need to hear. And it's what you need to hear and listen to when someone else is speaking. Because if they're thinking that, you still need to understand there's 8 to 10 other people in your community that have that same thought. So in order for us to sift all this out, we need to hear all the parts and pieces that will make us better as a group. So please keep that respect in mind, and let's go after the first one. Because the first one is this neighborhood school concept piece. When you guys are wrestling with consolidation versus building back or remodeling in your sites, these are the things you listed. Right now you have walk zones, you have some walkability, the distance and proximity of your school. You have this area here. Many of you mentioned that as one of the pieces of a neighborhood school. The idea of it being small. No one came out and said 1,500, 1,300, 700. There was no magic number that anybody put to how big is too big. But that might be a conversation that needs to be explored a little more. And why is there a magic number in your mind? If you think 1,300 is too big, then what are you afraid or thinking that wouldn't be included? Or if you're for that, what might be a good dream of something that could happen as being able to keep that many students in one place? So that's something that was marked by 7 of you. The whole social aspect, both good and bad, which I thought was a good point for people to bring up as part of neighborhood schools. The one of them that I found interesting without knowing detail was that more personal care and the relationships. As a school person, I guess that one raised my eyebrow a little bit because it's like, I would tell you that all staffs think that they've got a pretty good thumb on that personal relationship with their students and the care of their kids and their families they know, and so on and so forth. So, but that's something that we need to maybe dig a little better into the understanding of what that means, so we can all understand it better. The participation and the socialization, I sort of get, if you're looking at a 350 student elementary versus a 1,500 student elementary, I can see where someone might be at least questioning how you can communicate, how you can participate, how you can socialize, those kinds of things. But again, I would tell you, turn over to staff. Once you just make these decisions, then they'll make it happen. The community pride of neighborhood schools, somebody mentioned that. The whole identity of your, now I don't know if that was historically or if it's identity now, but that's something that someone brought up. Inequity between schools. Didn't say if it was a pro or a con, just that there might be some inequities there. A safer environment, multiple elementaries, and then comment that is something that we all need to at least look at too. Is this just a passive thing? That opinion that we talk about all the time. So I guess what I'd like for you to do first is just to your neighbor, one person, talk just a second about, is there a magic number that's too big? What constitutes a neighborhood school? Is you have about, what, 1,300 elementary kids? So if you have 1,300 elementary kids, talk about with your neighbor for just a second. Is 13 too many to have in one place? If it is, then talk about what is that number that you think is a more doable group? What's that number that you think is important to have? I'll give you about a minute. Talk quickly.
Rather, what's a good classroom size? Like, what's manageable for teachers? And starting with, like, I bet teachers would love a class of about 20. Like a 20, and then if you thought about having 20 kids over 3 or 4 classes over each grade, so that the kids have an opportunity to interact with different teachers across their grades. So our number for the school size is about 360 to 400.
Okay, other thoughts? Yes.
I think me over here, we kind of didn't pigeonhole a perfect number. It's all in how we decide to use that number, be it wings that were great, K1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Or a K through 6, a K through 6, a K through 6. So really, with us, it was more of a, the staff's going to make that work, whatever is decided. We need to trust them to do that.
That's good. Other thoughts? And we're going to keep moving. All right, keep that in mind because that'll come back at you. Remember, I'm very left-handed, very right brain.
I think the only thing to note though is that number is, I get exactly where that number came from, but based on our current numbers, that would mean we need a 4th building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think we need to note that.
Hold that thought because we'll come to that.
I'm just putting it out there, like.
I got it.
All right. Now, we're going to show you 7 different variations of things that you folks kicked up at us the last time. And I think I'm going to go through all 7 of them first, and then we're going to back up. So that you can have in your mind all the different pieces and parts that you were creative enough to come up with. Some of them I think you talked about in the last few levies. Some of them I think are different. Okay, and I think while we're at it, I'll also lay out where we'd like to probably go from this point by the end of the meeting. So let's take a minute and go through these, and then we're going to come back up and talk about each one. So this is just trying to get you an overview of what you shared. The first one was 1 new consolidated elementary. I'm assuming on the campus site. These are the pros that you spoke of in your groups. Some of those that sort of jump out at you are the new design, obviously, the collaboration, the centralized technology. Nurses in the school, I would share probably that all shared services would be looked at in one new consolidation. I'm going to go through these quick. We're going to come back at them. These were the cons. That loss of the personal connection, the loss of this community identity because the elementary buildings would move away. Transportation and traffic challenges. Some folks thought that would be a more expensive fix compared to whatever in their minds they were thinking of other options, which we'll list all of these. You'll probably see that quite often on all of these, because somebody is going to think that one solution is more expensive than another. So don't get too hung up on that issue. Location. Whenever you're working in a district and you're going to move students, that location becomes a challenge because the redistricting where the big R word comes with it. And then when you do that, you've taken that walk zone away that you identified as your top point in your community school piece. Okay? So you got a quick overview of that one. Here's number 2. let's renovate all the elementaries. That keeps the neighborhood schools. People think that's less expensive, more personal, smaller environments, better security. That will keep that increased parent involvement with the smaller schools in one person's mind, and that smaller school can also foster more leadership opportunities compared, in their mind, maybe to a one consolidated elementary. So there's the pros, there's the cons. And some of you are starting to get at some of those issues right away. And 4 of you mentioned the design limitations. OFCC, dollar and cent, they're going to put it back the way. Walls would stay the same, more likely. Steve, I don't know if you want to share, jump in, or Dan on that one, but that kind of a thing is going to be a facelift. But nothing changed for some of the educational flexibility needs and maybe some of those kinds of things. Logistics during construction. I can tell you, I live with that, staff, and community. You just got to hold on to the apron strings and know that it will pass. But that is something that you need to talk about and understand. Your whole community needs to understand that if that's the direction you go. See, someone listed cost on this one. I don't know what that means. 3 of you did, actually. So that whole piece, again, I don't know how we identify the more definitions of that. Yeah. That'll be the finance. Asbestos in older buildings, that's always got to be professionally removed. So that's a concern of one person. Someone thought it was a Band-Aid fix. Somebody thought it was a lower quality than new. Technology upgrades and unequalizing or balancing of sizes. So those are the cons to that second option. Okay, ready to move on to the third one. Here's number 3. Build new. Conneaut site. Build new at the Kenwood site and renovate your 3rd elementary. I'll say it correct. Correct. All right. That keeps neighborhood schools. And if you see that trend, though, there are at least 6 of you, so that means some of your community is trending with that. That's at least a notable piece. Design for today's learning. Limits some of the swing space may be needed, less expensive than all new. Eliminates the 2 worst or oldest, I don't know what they meant by that, but that piece, and increases property values in your schools. I would tell you also that any time that you upgrade your building, that is an investment in your community, and good schools and good facilities a lot of times equates to better property values. So some people would probably argue that, but that's at least
You got the community bill, maybe. What do you find are the property values of the houses right around this building? If this building gets bulldozed, then they think they're so Walmart or whatever they decide to do. Is there any studies of what happens in the community like that? Grim is a perfect example. There's nothing else over there. That school goes away. They're left with nothing. I mean, well, we pallet shopping, but I don't know that that's going to be without it.
That might not probably housing sometimes can be pretty pricey, but I will tell you that I will tell you on almost everything you can find studies to support whatever side you want to side with, okay? But most cases, the school improvements at least aren't going to hurt anybody. But I see what you're saying. It's outlying area or your in an area that doesn't go well. Sites are too small, and then the
the inequity of services between buildings. All right, then this is going to be 4, 5, 6, because you need to at least look at these as possibilities. Build a new, larger, and I don't know exactly what new and larger means, but a new and larger caveat, renovate and expand and renovate Kenwood and add an administration office to Kenwood.
The new and larger, I was part of that group, and what that was is simply eliminating an elementary, so you were gonna have to make one of them considerably bigger. So that was a phasing out of one elementary, making both the other elementaries bigger, one of which new, and then utilizing Clough Street here.
So you're thinking kind of like a north-south campus or like an east-west campus,
Something
kind of like that?
Yeah, and you utilize this property for potentially a preschool and the administration.
Would you be willing to talk about, because I had a very similar idea, but I was thinking Kenwood would be the spaces that we would look at for the elementaries, and Crim could be used for preschool and administration and whatnot. So I think that was a very similar idea that we had as well.
Are you hearing it enough so you get the idea of the concept?
I can hear it, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I just wanted to go back, I know I realize I'm kind of an old teacher, but back in when Common Core was first coming out and everything was changing, the big phrase was data driven. And I have been requesting since this whole process started that the focus not be on the second building. But I wanted to see the data that correlates with the new building guaranteeing success. And I've never been able to find the data. I did find like the Harvard study that talks about good lighting, clearly that's not the case here, air conditioning, cleanliness, windows in the buildings, things like that. But nowhere is there a single study that I can find, and somebody else can direct me, that says building either a very like large, like mega elementary will guarantee that test scores go up to 10 points.
Okay.
Or they will, I want to see that data.
Yeah, and you're not going to see it. And I'll tell you why. No, I'm just, this is again, I apologize, but this is my left and right brain and 42 years of
I
school.
understand, I want to see it from you.
No. Because that control group isn't constant. You can't keep all the variables constant to get a 10-year study with the same kids, the same, I don't think there's anywhere to do that.
There's no really educational justification when they do like the topics, better air, better water,
There are studies that maybe narrow those control groups down to the environmental conditions of buildings. And if you're looking at that, then you're really more looking at the health environment of a building. And if you have a building that has a healthier environment, what that leads to is higher attendance. If you have higher attendance, you have more time with kids, and all of this begins to correlate to some increased test scores. But you're not going to find an indisputable study that says if you build new or renovate, that it's going to elevate your test scores just because you build new or renovate.
Right.
That you're not going to find.
I've been looking for that. I've been asking for information about that. No one's ever answered me yes or no. No one says it's not available. You can't do it because the insurance baseline. But I can also imagine the public outcry because people are coming to the perception that new building, fixing every single problem we have, and then we're going to see kind of like to a public school. Where are their test scores? All new buildings. We're not seeing that. You have to justify that to a large part of the public.
And that's a fair statement. I guess when I envision what you say is you would take this building with this set of kids, and you run them for 10 years or 8 years in a year, and then you build a brand new building right next to it, but you can't take the exact same kids with the exact same issues, challenges, scores, everything else, and also put them over there to be able to compare.
I have a way to
down the line, put that out.
Yeah, but I
So all of those variables come together. So then do you just rely on comparing buildings versus old buildings? And there's a story? I guess I was getting a question about.
You could do that. That's why the state puts, a lot of times puts like districts into pools and layers and tries to get that kind of a study going to compare those test scores, but then you have to strike out the buildings and see if the buildings are similar. But, I mean, that's a great thought and concept, but I don't think anybody's figured out how to affect that. So, but anyway, everybody has the idea to the concept of
That's a two building solution in this one, about 650 kids per building.
It's two building
700,
solution
650, 700
with this
kids.
building being used as administration and auxiliary services.
Special services.
Correct, that was, our group was to utilize a portion of this building, finish the remodel job and trim and expand, and then basically a new, larger condo on the footprint that was there.
Yep, you got it.
Okay.
All right. Now, before we go any further, one point is if you go to OFCC, they could care less where administration and
They can't, as a taxpayer, I don't appreciate renting $50,000 here on Clough Street. So as a taxpayer, we're gonna, part of this whole process, I mean, we're here tonight because we're trying to make change for the better. And we're never gonna probably totally agree, but the fact that we're here talking, civilly, I think is a step in the right direction. So to pass this with the taxpayers, you have to find areas that are gonna save the taxpayer. We're currently spending $50,000 to $60,000 on Clough Street. Was it really? Okay, I was giving him the benefit of the doubt. And that money could be utilized much better within our organization.
You could build a whole new central administration building for less than what you're spending rent for 4 or 5 years.
He's picking up on a point that was made in the earlier presentations before when the levies went down. But I thought was much ignored, that there were so many ways to save money and to bring in money with the new building plans. For example, the sports space, being able to bring the tournaments, bring money that way. The special services were at CRIP, bringing in money not going out. I think we need, I know we're not the finance part, but I think we need to keep in mind that ways of saving money on things like rent and bringing in money. The overall picture. And that was one of the things that fueled me by the early plan, was the money generated, money saved.
Good. I think the point that I want to make is what I made initially. This is the purpose of school, what the reason we're here, making the decision, is about the education of the students. That is paramount. And I understand all these other factors that need to come in afterward. But I agree with the person in terms of data-driven decisions. And what I would like to see, and I'll get an email, but an analysis, a deep analysis of the structural data we've gotten that. But I want to hear from these teachers. They're the professionals. And it doesn't make any difference how many decades we have spent in education or degrees or whatever. Those are the experts right there. And I want to get an analysis from every school in terms of what is needed, what we need, bottom line, and what we want. Because that's the only thing that's important. That's the purpose of school, is to educate the students. And that's where our focus has to be. And to do it in terms of going to the taxpayers, we better have that data, not just our opinions, but we better have data and statements.
And that's restored once you get to that point. Not being negative to our teachers, but there are local schools. that are very successful in the state testing and every other way. They score very high in the state testing. Their schools are ranked very high. I don't be mean to the teachers, but I go to winners when I want to know who's winning. That's who I talk to. So I don't know why we're messing around or would talk to people who are getting a D grade when we go up the road 20 miles to find a B grade.
And again, as an educator, I would tell you that before you look at any of the scores, they change the scores so often, and they change the qualifiers and the pieces apart so often, that I think,
we're going to talk.
I think that your community needs to value what your community needs or wants to reflect. My past, I was in a district where they thought everybody had to go to a 4-year school and everybody had to do, and I can tell you right now, if you meet every kid's needs, you better not be worrying about tests so much as you are getting them career ready and all the other parts and pieces that come with that. Because there are schools that test and feed, food feed, whatever. And again, I'm probably showing you my school side. But everything needs to be qualified. And so the most important thing you guys can do is make sure you're comfortable with what your educational curriculum delivery model reflects and where you're getting kids to be at the end of their journey. Not so much from year to year, because every kid may grow 3 months 1 year, but then the next year it may be 3.5 years. So we can have, I love.
We can have this conversation.
So we'll do that though after this meeting. Yes.
And let's just keep in mind that those schools are out of the hills, and actually, those tax dollars, employing their kids, they don't have a whole school building that it takes free lunches because they are underprivileged and have low income. So let's keep that in mind, because the moving target does not take into account those kids and their needs.
Socially and mentally. I will tell you that there are a lot of variables that every district deals with, and so those conversations are probably better left to just, there's a lot of variables that come into every school district's body makeup for their students. Yes, sir.
Not too many years ago, I worked for Ohio Wesleyan University. You familiar with it?
Oh, yeah.
I was a football coach. We were the biggest recruiting problem they had. We recruited more people than most other programs there. The first thing that admissions department looks at, now, high-level university, the first thing they look at is your school ranking. I can get a B student or a C student out of Perrysburg, but I had a very tough time getting an A student out of Bolingbrook, because they have to level the playing field to grade the children going into those institutions. That's not state standards. They grade them on a lot of things, test scores, but they look at, that's it. But you could get I could get a B or a C student out of Perrysburg before, but couldn't get an A student out of Bolingbrook. And you want to talk about end of the game? There's the rubber meets the road.
So disagree. All right. So not on 3, everybody understands it. On 4.
Well, that was 4.
Well, that was 4. I'm sorry. 5. 5 is build a 4th elementary in the proposed location for the consolidated elementary school. This one, I will tell you, OFCC, if you partner with them, is probably not going to be their first choice. But everybody understands the concept. That's leaving the 3 where they are. They did not clarify whether you're just building a 4th new one and remodeling and renovating, or whether you're building all 4 new. That wasn't pointed out.
again, this goes back to their rule about 350 students minimum, and you're starting to push at that number or maybe beyond. That's a 100% no-go if it's 350 students or less. But what they also will do, and I didn't attend the meeting with Steve Roca, but if they consider another option viable and more economical than an option with a fourth elementary, they would cap the amount of money that they would provide at that other solution anyway. So just having worked with the commission, where you are right now with number of students, they're not going to look at adding a fourth building as a very viable option for you.
Okay, number 6 is build a grade 4-5 school in the proposed location for the consolidated elementary site. So this table was thinking more along the line of, again, either just remodeling or leaving the elementaries alone to pull 4-5 out combined to the new site, put all your 4th and 5th graders there, and then, I don't know, they didn't share that part, whether they were thinking they were leaving K2 or K3 in the 3 buildings, or what that might look like. But that's the concept. Then it would just be one new building, moving all 4th and 5th graders to that building, keeping your community schools alive in these buildings, and I don't want to speak for this group, but I'm assuming with some renovations to the buildings that are left. Does everybody understand that concept? All right. Then the last one, this is number 7. It took a little more space, so we stuck it on its own slide. But this is a stepped piece. This would be consideration of 2 new 2-story schools with approximately facility square footage for 700 students. This group's saying it could either be 2 K5s or it could be a K2 at one site and a 3-5 at the other site. They would suggest that you build the first new school at the campus site, and then when it was completed, move students to that building, demolish a building, and then be able to build back on that site. So they would rebuild, it looks like, when you look at the steps, they would rebuild, they would demolish Conneaut and then rebuild on that site, and then make necessary repairs and use that extra space. I'm in the shadow.
Use CRIM for preschool, special needs offices, etc.
Sometimes it's blind to make the.
Well, the first part was.
All right. Now, does everybody understand that premise?
And that one could actually flip either way, because what you're talking about is clearing off a site. So you could build on Conneaut, you could build on Kenwood, whichever one worked. It's the same option either way. 2 schools.
Now, all right, before we go on to that, we need to get off center. And so here's our proposal. We'd like to have you have some time to talk about those and share with us which ones we are thinking that they might be feasible or plausible enough to move forward. At the next meeting, we then would ask you to personalize that with clickers and sort of rate and tell us your support, that type of thing, so that we could then move those choices over to the Finance Committee, because I know bottom line is you're gonna say, well, I like that, but how much is it gonna cost? And if you're looking at serving your community and figuring out a master plan, you know that you might want a Cadillac, but you're gonna end up with a Chevy. And nothing against Chevy. So, what we need to talk about, once I turn you loose, is those 7, and we'll pull you back together to talk to you about, do we want to move them all to the finance group? Because we know you're going to want ultimately to know dollars and cents. The finance committee also, when you talk to people, will have to worry about what the village looks like and how that might be collected and mode and modalities of all that. So, but yes.
Would we need to have a curriculum person involved so they could give us some input as to what about the fourth amendment and so forth like that? The goods and the bad, pros and cons there. Because I don't think at a point we can have any buildings do whatever we want. But we got to know if there is an open concept, a traditional concept. What is this school district projecting to be in the future?
This may be hopefully a parallel to that, but we have a 5-6-month-old building that the district just built. So I would like to think, unless it has a life expectancy of 6 months, they build it for futuristic needs. I would like, before we go any further, to go in. Let's see what it looks like. How big are the classrooms? How are they designed? What furniture is in? I mean, I keep hearing the teachers' ideas. I'm not in the classroom, so I'm not going to say they're right or wrong. I have no idea. But the district obviously made some decisions prior to, we're talking about elementary school. They built a 6th grade building this summer. It's brand new. It's sitting out there. We've been in Conneaut. We know what it was designed like. We've been here. I don't care about the physical condition. I'm just talking about logistics. Before we make any decisions of what is this room supposed to look like, what are the teachers going to do in it, we just did it. It's brand new.
That's not our charge. Our charge is to decide.
Well, let's see what let's just see what it looks like. It's brand new. What's that? Yeah. Well, but it was built as a 6th grade building until they found out we didn't have enough 6th graders to use it. I mean, you go back through the paperwork, it was designed as a 6th grade wing. May I bring you the paperwork if you'd like to see it? That's what it was designed.
So if it was designed that way, have you been in the building in 7 and 8 before they were going? Have you been in the middle school, 7 and 8 building? Okay, but have you been in the middle school in the last 9 years? The new wing is exactly that way because it was designed at the same time. You're asking to see the wing, but you've seen it. You know what the middle school is. You've seen it.
I've never been in a classroom.
But that building has been there for 10 years, and this wing is designed the exact same way.
I agree with you. Don't you think we should see it?
Well, and that's
I mean,
fine.
because if our district is
We were thinking about going from middle school, so that would be that.
Am I the only one who thinks it's great since we just spend money on it?
Well, I think you made a comment that resonates with me in a way. Most people in the district will go into the office, the gym, the cafeteria, but very seldom into classrooms. So when you talk,
every month for a school board meeting, but I've never seen a classroom.
right.
But the classroom in a middle school is going to be significantly different than a classroom in an elementary.
Well, but all he's saying is
The building we just built was supposed to be used for 6th grade.
yeah.
Until a couple of years ago, our elementary buildings were K-6.
Exactly.
The community didn't make the decision to make them K-5.
And as a school administrator, I would tell you, good for you, because that shows the flexibility of space you're building, whether it's used for 8th grade or used for 6th grade.
If you're asking us to design something, let's look at what they just built.
Why would you not?
Right. That's the last thing we need.
What's the downside of, there's no downside to going. This isn't a race.
Okay, hang on here so we can hear.
Besides having somebody talk about curriculum, to know what we should be looking at, I want to see some new schools that have just been built, Otsego, Gloucester, or something like this, to see what an elementary school is like.
Well, but can we clarify what we're being asked to do? 'Cause
We
I
have to
think that's,
remember that
are we being asked to design a building?
No.
Okay.
No, right now you're being
But I
asked,
think we need to
do
clarify
you
that.
want to renovate? Do you want to build new? Do you want to do a combination? Or, bottom line, you need to design. Report back if you don't want to do it.
I don't know, I'm asking.
An intelligent decision to be made on that, when you don't have any statistics, you don't know exactly what new is going to cost, you have no idea what the educational plan is going to be, you have no idea what's even new out there, and you're asking me to make, and then you want me to go sell it to my neighbors.
No, right now, what I'm asking you folks to do is, if you're buying into this, what I'm asking you to do is give us basically what you think of your background and your knowledge of what school has been to you or is to you, what you think is needed. Then when you put the dollar amount to it, it may change. But if you're really looking at the future of Bowling Green schools and what might be the path or the master plan that you need first not to hook the dollar to it. Then when you hook the dollar to it, it may fall out and you might say, hey, we wanted this, but that's not going to fly. This is what we've got to do for the kids.
So you're saying, you're asking for the IP. That's what you're asking, because it may get shot down in the finance, and then we'll have to start over.
No, it won't get shut down, but it's going to have a dollar amount put to it. Then when we bring it back to you the second time, you may shoot it down. Because that second time, you might have a reality check and realize that we'd like to have that, but that's just not going to be something that our community will support. Yeah.
I would think that I would like to see a consolidated school. You're talking about a consolidated school, and we have no idea what they look like. We have no idea, even to invite some people in the community or teachers in the school to give us their opinion of what it's like. How can we do that? Something we don't know, something we do know. I agree.
All these are good points. Go ahead.
Well, let's jump in here because we're talking a lot about this. And I guess what we're hearing is discussion about renovation, comparison to new, what's the difference, and I guess a couple questions that we have that have come out of what's come towards us is, if you renovate, we know there's dollars. If you renovate, is that the right, or a renovation? And again, if a renovation master plan is where you're going, is renovating what you have the answer that you want to come out with? And if not, what I call it is reprogramming, and that's what we don't know yet, is what would need to change in a renovation in order to accomplish what you want to do. Because that is another factor in that whole process. It's a different dollar value. So we're going to have to then look at that and go, what does reprogramming mean? What's the cost of that? Is that going to change something and add to the base? So that's one piece. And then the other question that seems to be coming up is, what do you as a group need to know? What do you need to know about educational visioning? What do you need to know about the district's vision? What do you need to know? Or are you okay? Are you good and you don't need to know anymore and you're kind of ready to start moving this on? So we need to hear from you as to, do you have that information to make that kind of a judgment? And do you feel that renovating is renovating within the walls, or is renovating a bigger thing? Because you could do a renovation. I showed you some pictures last time of renovations. And those renovations look exactly like a new building. They didn't cost the cost of just renovating. It was the cost of renovating plus moving some things around and opening some things up. So that's how those became the same building. So that's what we kind of need to hear from you. Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a question. It appears that space is an issue. So the question, one of the questions that I have is, if you're going to have to add space on to some of these buildings.
It could be. I don't know the answer to that.
That's kind of what it looks to me. Like, we don't have, storage areas, even teaching facilities are not large enough. So it looks to me, just on my observation as a former teacher, that it looks like you have to add on. So then how much is that going to cost to add on if we keep the neighborhood school? I mean, that to me is a question.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How much, how much is that going to cost if we just add on?
The subject of the school district vision and educational direction has been touched on numerous times during the course of this meeting. I'm going to apologize in advance for reading this. I just didn't want to miss any points. It's not very long.
I think you can throw the bar.
I'm sorry.
Flower.
Okay, I'll try.
Maybe come out here.
A lot.
Maybe come out this way.
In my opinion, this task force cannot move forward without researching what the future vision is for Bowling Green City School students and what the teaching model should look like. I have been unable to obtain this information and would like to suggest that we form a visioning committee, a subcommittee, so to speak, from within this task force. This was first recommended to me by Dr. Ann McCarty and then by Eric Radabaugh. David Conley approved the formation of this visioning committee. This group should be 2 or more, up to a total of 6 people. We would, of course, need to, as a group, collectively vote on whether or not we choose to have this subcommittee.
Yeah.
I think this would be a very good idea, because I'm seeing things getting so scattered and so fractured, and we are losing sight of what we do. All we're saying is going to do what's good for kids. And we need to understand how, what curriculum on, what are the advantages of consolidation in terms of teaching youngsters, of using all of our resources, human and physical, in the best way. I have picked up so many negatives, like people are sending torpedoes. I think Dr. McCarthy can help us understand what we're trying to do in the big picture. We're getting too fragmented.
there is a strategic plan for the district. It is published on the school website. I mean, there is a plan. It does
Does that
exist.
include visioning?
It's a long document.
Strategic plan
Real
involves
quick,
a
I
lot
just
of
want to make
different.
sure everybody understands, because I don't know how many people in this room have really put forth a great deal of effort into this task. There's some people in here that have put hours, weeks, months into this, and there's others that I firmly believe show up once a month, and that's fine, it doesn't matter. But what I want to make sure everybody understands, because there's some people in this room that are vocal and not bashful, and others really don't want to talk in public. There are members of this group that have reached out to Dr. McCarthy, asked for help, asked for assistance, asked for guidance. And what Brenda said needs to resonate with you. Do it on your own.
And I guess.
On the committee, and do it on your own. The district won't guide us.
And
We were told to form the committee ourselves.
And one thing, I guess, you don't have to answer this question, but internalize it. When I hear all the different things that you're sharing, that you can't make a decision because you need to know this, that, or the other. Because your charge was to renovate, to tell the board and superintendent that you want to renovate or you want to build new. Will that knowledge help you personally decide whether a building needs renovated or built new? And I'm not, and please don't take it the wrong way, 'cause I know curriculum and I know that curriculum is a strength for any school. But when I hear all of these folks talking about all the different things that are here, it would be great to hear that, but ask yourself the question, if your charge is to talk to the board and the superintendent about renovation versus building new, is that something that is going to help you, or is it going to just leave you with the same questions that you currently have?
Well, my thought is this. I mean, if you create that committee, then it's fine. Why don't you, if that committee charges to find that educational vision, you know, and if you look at OFCC's paper, they got several different build plans for your educational vision. Why don't we look at the top 5 in the area? You know, let's see what Perrysburg's doing, let's see what Ottawa Hills is doing. I understand that those may not be out of our price range, but, you know, like he said, pick the winners and go from there.
I gotta believe that the curriculum is already established. You already have a mission and vision. I mean,
That was kind of my thought by going through the building we just built. I thought, since they don't want to guide us, we'll just see what they just did. I mean, that was my whole reasoning for wanting to do it. That ought to answer the question. What does this district want the new classrooms to look like? They're 6 months old.
I think you also heard from elementary teachers here that said that's not necessarily what's going to suit at the elementary grade level. Okay, it's designed for different age groups.
For 6th grade or not.
it could be, because again, that flexible space is such a
What did we just resolve? That I thought the guidance system needs to and then we could decide if this room
Literacy document.
nothing wrong with and I did
Here's what I would want to hear from, I would like to see, because I haven't seen the classroom in the middle school. So what I want to know from the curriculum,
hold on.
let's say we're 900 square feet in those. I want to know from her is, I see the district sees 900 square foot classrooms being 4 to 12. So I want to know how big they see that ideal classroom size, K1, 2, 3, because we're talking space here. We're talking, does this building, in whatever configuration we put it into, have the required amount of space with or without, or space added on? And I don't think we can get there until we kind of know, hey, we like, for what we want to do, we want 1,100 square feet for kindergarten. And this area, this neighborhood school, we see typically 3 kindergarten classrooms. So we're talking 33 square feet right there. And then you add on the other grades to that. I want to know if we're talking about renovating, adding on physical space, which is what we've got to eventually take to finance, because if it's going to be additional space, it's additional money. Dollars and cents have to flow from somewhere. I don't think we can fulfill our charge without necessarily knowing what the district's plan is in that regard, because a kindergarten classroom, they may see needing more space than a senior English classroom, because kindergartners run around, they need to expend energy.
We had that in the Kent Bureau plan. I mean, they had a consolidated plan when you looked at the rooms, and the typical room was 8 to 950. I think the kindergarten rooms were bigger. You could see the blueprints. I got them through a public records request. That's what it was. That's what their vision was through Kent Bureau.
I think potentially you guys have gotten in the weeds. And I don't think you really need to. I think you need to step back here a little bit. And the reality is, if you end up, if some of your scenarios end up being new facilities, don't worry about the detail of the classrooms. Later on, we'll want to understand configuration in this room. When I say configuration, I heard small group space. We're going to want to know, is there collaboration spaces, your teaming, things like this. But right now, the number of students drives the square footage, and then that drives the budget. Okay, it's just that simple. Where the educational delivery methodology makes a difference is if you say we're going to keep these buildings, okay? Because if they're trying to do the things that you mentioned, and they just touched on the iceberg there, then potentially we're going to be moving walls. We're going to be reconfiguring the building. And none of that is figured so far. Okay, so understand, when you start approaching 2/3 the cost of new, and then you start moving the walls around, it's a game changer. Okay, does that help?
That was my reason to bring in the curriculum. It's going to be a traditional, which isn't going to take the same amount of space as an open. So if the open, it takes more space and it's not here, then we've got to consider that, and that's the reason I asked.
Again, it's more critical when you decide you're going to keep these buildings. But if you decide these have outlived their useful life, and maybe the cost of new is
But it's going to kind of decide, it's going to be a factor is if we can say this building is affordable to renovate. If it's going to have to be new, then it may not be affordable. I mean, it plays on what is their plan of quality of things.
Doesn't it also say that Benjamin swings back and forth? He said that we could only do what we know now. We cannot project 20 years from now. We cannot project.
And I think by doing these tours, we're trying to invite you into our classrooms in a way and give you an idea of what we're doing with what we have now. And no matter what the outcome is, we're going to still do what we can with what we have. So that's our way of kind of showing you what our vision is and how we're working with it. And our task, I think we need to stay focused on that. Our task is to decide, are we renovating or are we building new? It's not to tear apart the vision or redesign the vision, because that's not really our place. And there's a lot of decisions that are going to be out of our hands when we get to the end. Like, some of the things are not going to be like up to our committee to nitpick and like design every single little aspect when we get to the end of this road. Like we're making that decision is how I understood the goal and that the finance team is looking at options for what funding we could potentially have and where it could come from. That's how I've understood it, and I think we just.
Yeah, and Tim mentioned earlier, don't worry about the dollars and cents. The reality is, these options end up being about the same. Don't get hung up on that right now. Now, if at the end you're gonna, if you see a cost difference that's significant, and you're maybe on the fence between two solutions and one's that much more, well, that's kind of easy. But for the most part, don't get hung up on dollars at this point. You're trying to create big decisions. One school, two schools, three schools, okay? That's the first big decision right there. And then you start to drill down from that. Question in the back?
You mentioned this last week, seeing other schools, and we talked about this week. So we have neighbors that have been through this fairly recently. Maybe their situation isn't exactly the same, but we've just seen two old schools. Kenwood. We have fairly new schools at Seagull, Elmwood. I'd like to go there and say, guys, what did you do wrong? What would you do different if you had to do it over again? I want to learn from their experience. What did you do right? Did you screw it all up? Give us some feedback. They've been through it. I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, those tours are really, I'm not opposed to tours, and I think they're very enlightening and this sort of thing. But I still think you guys are faced with some big, high-level decisions. Like I said, one school, two schools, three schools.
Yeah, but
That's a
you
big
can't
part.
get there because maybe this is an adequate school when we look at it tonight, some people, okay? But you walk in a new school and it's like, oh my God, look at the size of the hallways. Look at these spaces here. What did, maybe that you have it all together.
So we had all this discussion about the class, the small group work in front of a doorway. Okay, in a new school that accommodates that, you still have room to get around, right? So you, of course, if that helps you guys arrive at your decisions, then
We did send some examples, some options, some ideas to David, as some buildings that we've done that you could go see. They're all in Wood County. New buildings we just did in Wood County are Northwood and Eastwood. Those are new buildings. We did both buildings in North Baltimore. That's one new and one renovation. If touring and seeing any of those, and again, even if you're looking at new, what that's telling you is, are the kinds of spaces you see in new what you'd want to do if you renovate? And so that's the question that helps formulate the answer of what is a renovated, what is a renovated building that's going to work for you? So
I have a hard time seeing what a renovating building will give you that space. But if you have one that's been done, you could just say.
Powell's renovated elementary. Yeah. In North Baltimore.
I'm not an architect, but my area was curriculum theory. But on a practical level, in the 60s, I taught in a brand new building that was designed by the superintendent, top down. And he designed the building to meet that educational philosophy. And there should be a seamless transition between the facility, the curriculum, the instructional strategies, and the assessment. And if you don't have the facilities, sometimes you cannot implement that curriculum. And that building was designed with that unique philosophy in mind, and it rivaled anything that you put up there, and that was 50 years ago. When all kinds of architecture work. But the bottom line is it worked for that. It was very innovative school and curriculum, but it fit. And so if you don't have the facilities, you cannot implement everything you want. So I'm fully in favor of I'm really concerned that we haven't hit the data points of the educational system. I want to hear from the teachers. I want to hear from the curriculum people. Because even if I say, I think, what about these kinds of school configurations? My sister taught elementary and she said, no, that doesn't work. So, all my years and all that background didn't go to made wrong.
So let me, I need some clarification.
I want to know what they're.
So if this group did a visioning, are you taking the school vision, mission, all of the curriculum alignment, all the, and doing it again? Is that what I'm trying to figure out?
We don't even understand the current vision and what that looks like to know what we currently have. No one has been willing to talk about it.
The current plan is on the front of our website, and it includes what we're doing now.
Well, let me help you out.
This.
At the last school board meeting, she's very specifically asked our board, our superintendent, our treasurer, and our curriculum director that exact question. And no one gave her a straight answer. Nobody.
Because they don't have.
So because
It's on the website.
currently have, they
It's
don't know what
a
the
vague
models gonna look like. They don't understand.
It's a 13-page document.
Think about a plan.
And it says almost
for a
nothing.
renovation
And it
or
really
rebuild.
doesn't say
We
much.
don't know what that's supposed to look like. We can't get the information and people are
Well, then, unlike that.
I think at that meeting, that it wasn't one person didn't want to answer, and we were called also individually, and none of us wanted to make that answer for the district. We felt it would be, so I felt it would be something that would be answered by many people in the district.
And that's
So,
what we would
but
like
I also think that, as you said earlier about going too nitty-gritty in the detail of it all, I mean, the district did come up with an idea for a consolidated building, and I'm not saying that's what I'm proposing. What I'm saying is within those spaces, they had looked at the sizes of the gym, they had looked at the sizes of classrooms. You know, they had already said these are the kinds of spaces that we would like. So I don't know if we need to reinvent all of that. I think the questions are really great here, and I think there is more information that we do need. I mean, I'm thinking of things, we should be looking at numbers. You know, we had a redistrict right before I came because of where the shifting in the population was. We're in that place again right now, where we have an empty classroom here, we're talking about modulars there, you know? So these are the kinds of things that they're asking us to look at. And I think the school building, I appreciate you wanting to know our vision. When you read our vision, it's about educating all students. It's about educating all students, and that's where the small groups and collaboration come in. It hasn't changed. That is in the strategic plan. But the strategic plan has each category, and one of them is facilities, and one of them is to create a committee to do what we're doing now. So if you read that, it says by March, which is what they're asking us to do here. But I do think that you're right, there is more information. And it does have to do with how many buildings, and do we want grade level buildings? Do we want to redistrict again? Because we've done that how many years? I just got here. It's been what, 7 years maybe? Is that correct, Tammy? I think it was 7, is that right?
I was gonna ask a follow-up question, because just not, and I don't know, I have not read the strategic plan.
Yes.
And I don't know really what the vision is. But if someone can maybe explain to us, because typically we do work with districts and do visioning. We always work with the school district as part of that visioning process. We don't currently have that available to us. I know, I'm just saying, but let me just ask a very straightforward question. Is the vision of whatever new or renovated buildings in this district, does it equate to the model of a typical double-loaded corridor school?
I will answer you that it didn't say that in the mission or the vision.
And that's kind of from, when we think spatially as architects, we begin to think about space.
Yeah.
And we begin to think about whether or not the classroom configuration sizes and what's offered is providing you the spaces to meet the individual needs of kids. And so that's what we would like, that's what we want to get out of visioning, because we will usually take that and synthesize it into some diagrams of what would spaces be in order to do that. And that's when I brought that first question up, what is the apples to apples of renovation versus new? And is a new building, in the eyes of the district, equal to a renovated building as it is today, or does it need to change? And that's kind of where we're trying to get to the heart of, because that starts folding into those cost questions.
But I don't think that when we did that, we did revise our strategic plan. When we did it, part of it was to ask the community to form a committee to meet. So it wasn't just us making that whole call. We were asking for a communal decision. So it isn't in there.
When you do that visioning, who do you typically do it with? Do you do it with administration, teachers, parents?
Yes.
All of them.
Students. Yeah, everybody.
It's usually a group.
But is it typically, is it before or after money? Like, what point do you normally do it?
Often it can affect money, so it should be done early, so it can factor into the decision of what you want to do. Now, sometimes if you already know you're building new, we have some more flexibility because we know, okay, within that square footage, what do we need to accomplish within that square footage? So as Dan had said, that really factors a lot more into the equation of renovation, because we don't know yet what that means.
Now, just asking another question, as an architectural firm, we had an architectural firm who helped design the proposed original plan. Would you guess that he probably did the same thing at that point? You wouldn't know. I didn't know if this was, you haven't seen the original plan?
No, I think I saw an article someplace.
Okay.
We're trying to gather more information. I think I saw an article where they created a footprint, a sample footprint without really truly doing design. Something that was a placeholder.
Okay.
Because when I looked at it, it looked like something very.
That's what I saw on the site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And that's possible, I don't know, I'm just asking. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea.
And I think, I don't know why I'm thinking I even saw a quote from there that they said it was just a placeholder. Nothing more than that.
Okay.
So the architects are saying these are formidable questions that need to be answered.
Yeah, I think you start with the districts, the district vision plan, and then you build on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
What's our most recent strategic plan? When was it written? Finalized? I'm assuming we would know the dates on that, or?
2018 to 2021.
Yeah, it was last year. Yeah, it was just spring.
That's the,
2018 to 2021.
Yeah.
when was that approved by the board? Has it been approved yet?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's by the public. That's by the public.
So when did they go public? I've never heard of from the 2018 plan. It seems like it would have been after last year. The response was one board member gave me his vision, personal vision, and then I asked Dr. Emma Carney to share a little bit. And following that, the directive to me was, we encourage you to meet with Dr. Emma Carney and any other staff members to further figure this out, and I've been unable to do that.
Your time or they refused? So in public meeting, it's
Okay, we need to wrap it up. That, I guess, that's sort of out of our control. And I hate to say that, but I'm standing around on that one. I don't know whether you can try to go back, if that was your direction, and see if you can give us an update at that point. Do we want to pencil in another date of the 9th of January at the middle school? And we'll continue, but you've seen those 7, so you can mentally internalize that type of thing, talk about and think about what you might other questions you might have, because the idea again is to narrow that scope and send it to finance so that they can put dollars and cents to it.
Take that one right out.
All right. Thank you for your time. Yes. Age, let's go 6 o'clock for the tour and start at 7. The 9th. January 9th. Thanks for staying with us.
Yeah, it is.